Last week, the wrestling world lost another legend, as it was announced Terry Funk passed away at the age of 79. Funk had a career that spanned more than 50 years, and although most old school fans remember the early stages, think Amarillo in Florida, and the new fans remember the late stages, think ECW, WWE, and the independent circuit, as this is an 80s channel, I wanted to focus on that time period as it cemented my love for the character that was Terry Funk. As the son of a wrestling legend, Dory Funk Sr., he could have easily been lost in the spotlight of success of his father and older brother Dory Jr., but his talent would manage to shine through. By the time I was introduced to Funk in the mid-80s as a branding iron-wielding maniac challenging Hulk Hogan and Junkyard Dog in WWF, he had already become a legend by holding the NWA World title for 14 months in 1975 and 76, and mesmerizing Japanese wrestling fans with memorable feuds with Abdullah the Butcher, Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, and other legends. But it was in the 80s that really brought Funk to mainstream attention. In 1981, while in CWA, he had a memorable feud with Jerry Lawler that culminated with a wild, empty arena match between the two that ended with Funk stabbing himself in the eye. The visual of a crimson-faced Funk squealing, "My eye!" at Lance Russell while calling Lawler a pig is etched in the mind of many wrestling fans. In fact, his run in Memphis in both 1981 and 1983 produced some of the most memorable promos of all time that, when looked on with modern eyes, definitely influenced both Mick Foley's promo and wrestling style. After years of feuding with Dusty Rhodes throughout Florida, Georgia, and Texas, who can forget their Texas Spun Coast match from July 1982? Or his debut in WWF in 1985 when he beat the crap out of Mel Phillips for daring to put his cowboy hat on his head. Although his WWF run was brief, it provided many memorable moments during the rock and wrestling era. Or his time in WCW in 1989 when he feuded with Ric Flair over the NWA World title, which is one of my favorite runs of Funk's career. Although it was short-lived, it produced two moments that will go down in history. His piledriver on Flair onto a wooden table after he just regained the world title from Ricky Steamboat at WrestleWar '89, and the shopping bag incident from Clash of Champions 8 when Funk attempted to suffocate Flair in a segment that was too hot for TV. The I Quit match that followed this angle ended up receiving 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. It was that good. On top of that, throw in a very successful movie career as well throughout the 80s. Funk was always known as a chameleon with his character and seemed to change his physique, facial hair, wrestling gear, and even his wrestling style depending on which territory he was in, and never was this more apparent than his runs in ECW and WWF throughout the 90s. He had a style that was almost unrecognizable to his fans that watched him throughout the 70s and 80s, but one thing that never changed: Funk was as tough as nails, an amazing talker, and someone that made you believe what you were watching was real. And that is why Funk will go down in the history books as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Do yourself a favor and spend a few hours today diving down the rabbit hole of Funk in Memphis, WWF, and NWA in the 80s. You will not be sorry. Condolences to his family and friends on this loss. Rest in peace, Terry Funk.